The wait is over. The provisional 2025 MotoGP calendar has been released, and it's time to gear up for a year of unparalleled excitement. The schedule has certainly been shaken up with a historic kickoff in Thailand and the return of Brno in the Czech Republic, as well as the Hungarian Grand Prix after 32 years of absence. With 22 races across 18 countries and some dream destinations like Indonesia, Japan and Malaysia, next season is set to be one of the most heart-pounding in MotoGP history. And you can be there to witness it all. Just head to MotoGP.MotoGPPremier.com to see the full schedule and all available packages.
Hello everyone, welcome to OMG MotoGP, although today's episode has a massive World Superbike twist. Don't forget you can sign up for free on-air Patreons, or if you prefer, why not subscribe to OMG MotoGP? You'll get notifications of when each new episode comes out. Today, we've the most successful World Superbike rider ever. 6 consecutive world titles. Welcome, Jonathan Ray.
Oh, thanks for having me, Keith.
It's always a pleasure, Jonathan. I always like that. Where are you? You're at home in Northern Ireland?
Yeah, back home in Northern Ireland. It was nice, actually. We're experiencing a few days of consistent good weather. So, yeah, can't grumble at that. I've spent the last, since Most, I went straight to Barcelona. We have very fortunate to have a holiday house there, and wow, the weather was amazing. So it's nice to actually be able to come home and put something different than shorts and t-shirt on, you know.
But daddy daycare, you've told me already. Tarsha stayed out in Barcelona to look after the dog, and you're back looking after the 2 boys. That is a handful.
Yeah, well, do you know what? They're really good boys, but it's just their schedules are busier than mine. They're aspiring young footballers, so an important tournament next week, the Belfast Cup. So it's one of the most let's say famous or popular football tournaments in Northern Ireland, and so we decided to bring them back into their team. Started training last week, so they missed that. So we'll get them in this week in the weekend game, and then prepare them for the tournament next week. So yeah, doing that part, I enjoy that, to be honest, as well. They had motorbikes when they were 3 and 4 years old. They could ride bikes, the little electric bikes now that are popular, and then onto little Pee-wee 50s and KTM 50s, if you like, the race bikes. But they're just okay with bikes. They like them. The elder one, he enjoys it a lot more, but he's got no real inspiration to race motorbikes. But I don't know where they get the football from, but they're well keen on that. You never know, a kid's. It's crazy growing up in the motorbike world, because it's almost, I don't know, what's that famous quote about, is it the 10,000 hour theory? If you put in 10,000 hours, you can be pro or good at anything. Where football's like, so I found in motorbikes, the kids that just had time and in motocross and developed, they would be at a really good level, But in football, bloody hell, there's kids on every street that are super talented. You know what I mean? So it's a ruthless sport. But I really, really enjoy it because I know literally nothing about it. So it's literally, you hand them over to the kids. You can have your opinion, but I'm not very good at developing them. So it suits me quite well, because daddy doesn't really get involved.
Is it a relief that they're not perhaps going down the road racing? Yeah, look at Neil Mackenzie and other famous fathers in the UK that Leon Haslam, obviously the Haslams as a family, in Northern Ireland, these dynasties that come from names. I mean, your family, your dad, Johnny Ray was a TT winner and has been pretty damn good over the years as well. So is it a relief that they've not gone down that route?
Yeah, it is actually, to be honest, because but then I say that, bloody hell, I've had such an amazing life and met most of my lifer friends are from motorbikes, from the motocross paddock. Like, I wasn't at school, I did all right, but I was a country boy, so I wasn't the most popular in school, and I didn't play rugby for the school team because on Saturdays I raced motorbikes. So my lifetime friends are in motorsport, and I've met amazing people. It's been a hobby that became a job, and it allowed me to travel the world and see so many different cultures. sample so many, as silly as it sounds, and you'll know because we travel the world and we're fortunate enough, but you bring up some different foods to kids, some of my kids' friends, and they've got no idea what these foods are, and I remember we came home the other night and Tyler was he was saying to his little friend, "Oh, my favorite food is spaghetti vongole, spaghetti with clams." And his mate was like, "What's clams?" And I was thinking, "Well, that's not actually that silly a question for an 8-year-old, but my 8-year-old likes clams. He's a weirdo. So, um, I think motorbikes gave me that culture, which I'd like them to have, But I think everyone makes their own path. So I watched Jake ragdoll down a Tandragee track one day, and I thought, this is a tough and cruel sport. If they're not waking up with the burning desire to do it, then it's not a sport that you can force upon kids. So with the younger one who was probably as talented on a motorbike at 4 years old, I thought he was going to be, the next kid, and then all of a sudden he developed fear and just didn't really want to ride. So I learned from the elder one not to push that and just let him find his way. But we still all ride bikes together. We still enjoy getting out, but it's not. And also, I think this sport's given me an amazing life, and I'm probably jumping years ahead now, thinking into retirement. But I do feel I don't want to. I'm happy. I'd be happy enough to finish my competitive career and not walk away from motorbikes completely, but I don't want to be doing another 13, 16, or 21 weekend championship. You know what I mean? I think a bit of normality and jumping into a bloody motocross paddock after my career probably not what I'm into either.
Well, the thing is as well, I mean, you're what, 37 years old now?
37, yeah.
Your wife is very, very smart as well, and she's been in the paddock a long, long time. Back in the Honda Britain days, I think you two met from that particular setup up in Louth in the UK. I'm sure you and her must have a similar view as to things moving forwards. But I mean, we'll jump there if you like. I mean, retirement isn't imminent, but it ain't that far off really at this particular point. I mean, I don't want to talk. The trouble is when people start talking about it, it's almost like they put the seed in to teams, and to that thinking process starts. And when the hiring and sponsorship is out there at the moment, things like just a small podcast like OMG MotoGP can make a difference in someone else that might watch this. So I don't want to preempt anything you got going on at the moment, but you've still got work to do at the moment, haven't you, in that paddock?
Oh, yeah.
A substantial amount of work.
Yeah, I think that's probably a good way to put it. So the question I was getting was, do you regret the decision? And I was, long story short, not at all, because I'd done 9 years with my previous team, loved them very much. They gave me an incredible opportunity, but it wasn't quite enough. I also wanted to do something different, and I felt like now was the time. And with Top Rack moving away from Yamaha, there was a seat became available that I thought, I would love the chance to try something new, to also refresh my brain, you know what I mean, and learn something different. I feel like as much as this first 6 races into my Yamaha career hasn't been the dream move by any stretch, it's also made me think a lot more of myself as a person and grow a bit as well. I didn't come completely alone. I brought my chief mechanic with me, who's responsible for all the modifications, not modifications, all the work on the bike. So it felt a little bit like home, but I come into a completely new team. And after 9 years from my previous team, I probably underestimated the working relationships that kind of builds, that time frame. But listen, I really enjoy. For my first road to Yamaha, I loved the character of it. And I explained quite openly to loads of people that the bike right now is still better than me. I still have to be able to ride the bike in anger. But it's coming slowly. But we also know that we need to improve as a manufacturer and improve the package, because Superbike, if anything's standing still, which is quite worrying, because with the fast approaching regulations of MotoGP coming in 27, and the ideology to slow everybody down a little bit, and we can't keep making super bikes that are 250 horsepower and then getting closer. There has to be some sort of
there will be. I'm absolutely sure there will be. I think Dorna are working on several things. I was reading this morning about a new GPS thing that that works out to all the telemetries that they've combined to work out runoffs and where the characteristics of motorbikes, where they're laying down the power, where all the braking points, all the telemetry from various partners to try and work out where they've got to improve safety on racetracks and the like. Let me get back to that Yamaha situation. I mean, on the Kawasaki, you were doing stuff on that Kawasaki that I don't think I'm going to embarrass you with this, but I will if you feel embarrassed, feel free. You were doing stuff on that bike that I don't think any of us can appreciate. I mean, like, you would step back from the TV watching it. It was absolutely awesome. You and that motorcycle at one point were at a level that no one could get near. Everyone was screaming about the Kawasaki's this and the Kawasaki's that, but the fact is that you were riding the thing as best you can. And despite your demeanour, which is obviously very nice and very respectful, on track, you are an animal. There is no doubt in my mind about that. You will do whatever is necessary to make it work. But did you look across, getting to the point now, Ewan, did you look across at that Yamaha and think, its top rack was making it do stuff? And did you feel that you might be able to even improve on what Top Rack was doing with it? What was the thought process that attracted you to the Yamaha?
Because it was new and fresh, and I felt I needed that. That was from a performance point of view. So long story short is my last year at Kawasaki, I won one race at Most. You could probably say I didn't. It was not a cheap win. No wins are cheap in World Superbike, but it was a conditions win that I went out and got stuck in with intermediates. Seen it as my chance, and for generally the last year at Kawi, the story was I could live with guys like Toprak and Alvaro for half the race, and they would ride off at the end. That was the reality of my year. So the way I thought is, I need to improve on that. I need to be able to fight consistently at the front, to be able to fight with these guys. I felt the Kawi in the 23 era, I'd done as much as I could with it. You know what I mean? I felt like I got everything out of it, and now was the time in my career. If I was going to ever change, it was now. Like you say, I'm 37. I wasn't going to do another year, see out my contract, and then think about another, 2 or 3 year plan. It was no, this seat became available. I want it. It's going to be fresh, something new, and relight the fire. I didn't really compare myself to Top Rack, but I felt the success story at Yamaha would be being on the podium, competing for a race win, because really at Kawi in my last year I couldn't do that. Alvaro and Top Rack had me covered. So yeah, we're still, we're halfway through our season. It's definitely took, I underestimated the challenge, not of the bike, but just how competitive I would be. So just learning things about myself. The bike, as much as it's a 4-cylinder 1000cc bike, it's completely different. How the bike makes the lap time is different to what I've been used to. So I'm exploring that. And electronics nowadays, electronics are so difficult to understand. And if they're not set up exactly how you like. It's a confidence game as well. My confidence clearly. I had a decent winter, to be honest. Came out of the first laps on the bike were incredible because it felt, oh, this is easy to ride. Quite quickly, I found the limit. Started finding some areas that I could improve, and then I got to Phillip Island and had two humongous crashes. And that sapped so much physical and mental energy from me. And then just a few little setbacks along the way, and I felt especially after Misano, I had a huge crash on Saturday. It was just time to rebuild. Forget about where we are. Let's start again, chip away. Different mentality, and yeah, podium at Donington. I was competitive enough at the end of the races in Moss, but reality, 10th, 8th, and 6th aren't something I would like to boast about. It's not good enough for me. It's not good enough for the team. So we have to improve. But the biggest thing we have to improve is qualifying. Very tough bike to pass in the races, in and amongst traffic. It makes the lap time in different ways to other machines. So when I've been I don't think, aside from Assen when I put the bike on pole in the wet, I don't think I've qualified in the front two rows. It's been rows 3, 4, and 5. So I haven't given myself the best opportunities to get good results either. So like I say, confidence game. I'm trying not to throw my arms up in the air and think it is what it is. Just keep, like I did in tough days when I was fighting Bautista in 19. I just kept thinking, next weekend it'll be better. We'll keep turning it around, keep thinking there's another opportunity coming, and doing it like that.
Experience the excitement and adrenaline of MotoGP like a VIP. With MotoGP Premier, the official ticket package provider to MotoGP, fans dive headfirst into unparalleled access at every race on the calendar. Whether you're watching the action from a grandstand or immersing yourself in Apex's Premier Lounge, all packages include exclusive behind-the-scenes experiences, from exploring the paddock and inside team garages to walking the starting grid, even rubbing elbows with riders. Every moment is designed to elevate your Grand Prix experience to extraordinary heights.
Were there any other opportunities? I mean, when you were looking at the Yamaha deal, Top Rack jumped over to BMW. BMW was not, basically BMW, they had to make it work really with Top Rack. They hired one of the fastest men out there, and he is making it work. Was there an opportunity for you? Were you talking to anybody else, other manufacturers?
Last season, no, because I was in the middle of a contract anyway, so I wasn't actively looking, to be honest. Just in my career, I've had a few different opportunities to move. From back in the Honda days, I had lots of opportunities. To when I was with Kawasaki, there was one or two, but nothing really. I do feel my career path was quite defined in the way it should be. I always managed to make the right decision for me at that time when it worked out.
The Honda thing, though, that must have been disappointing. I still, we've talked about this many times. Me and you have gone over this ground, and I'm sure you have with so many other journalists at some stage or another. But the Tinkata thing, you got more out of that Honda than anybody else could, and did more for Honda in World Superbike in that situation back then than anybody else could or did. And yet, only 2 rides in MotoGP. This is, after all, OMG MotoGP, I suppose, but we've gone proper down the World Superbike line today. But those 2 rides, they kind of went unheralded. But I've got to say, what was it? Was it a 6th and a 7th you got in those 2 rides?
7th and an 8th, yeah.
7th and an 8th, there you go. Well, look, 7th and an 8th in that company, on that motorbike, at that time, without throwing the thing at the fence, was pretty remarkable. And yet, you still didn't get that move to MotoGP. I thought it was going to be a done deal back then. I really did, Jonathan.
Yeah, a little bit. I can't look back on it I don't look back on that period with anger or an opportunity that didn't come. I also feel like I'm very humbled, and from humble background. My dad never let me get away from myself or blow up in the hype, and I tell you, I grew up motocrossing with kids that didn't have the same opportunities or privileges I did, but were super, super talented, right? So I understand there's loads of talented kids out there and um, that didn't get opportunities, and I did. You know, in my career, I had decent opportunities, but I also made the best of them. And I look back on my Honda days with, okay, a little bit of frustration because that Grand Prix ride never opened up, but also Honda gave me the opportunity to come to the World Championship and World Supersport in 2008 with the Tenkate team. The opportunity to, I mean, I wasn't a spotty teenager. I was about, I think I was 21, but I was literally getting paid to do my hobby, and that was something I've been so blessed to do. Then they gave me a superbike ride. I won 15 superbike races, I think, with Honda. Um, got the opportunity to win Suzuki 8 Hours, to ride the not just a MotoGP bike, the best MotoGP bike, um, the most iconic MotoGP bike of all time. You know, the Repsol Honda, if you like, and very proud possessions that I've still, you know, the leathers, and you know, I've still got the memories and pictures that I did that. So of course, around that time when I did the wild card, I was having a shocker in World Superbike. The only saving grace was doing. I won the Suzuki 8 Hour that year. I got married that year, and I got the two wild cards. And around that time, we were talking with Honda about replacing Bautista. And it was the way the races went. I think I remember it was Misano first and Aragon second, and it's the time Grassini was sponsored by Go and Fun, and Bautista went out at Misano and put it on the box, and um, the sponsor was there and super excited, and all of a sudden it was okay. Well, you're probably not going to replace him because they want him to stay next year. I thought, all right, but the following fortnight in Aragon, I followed him home. You know, 3 seconds, 3 or 4 seconds behind him in the race, in front of Valentino, who was on the Ducati. He was right behind me. And I thought, well, if that had came earlier, you know, maybe they'd have thought if Aragon had came first and I was chipping away at him, maybe that door would have opened. But um, listen, I had a great experience there, great fun. But yeah, I think it was the reason when the opportunity didn't come, it was more sort of fuel in the fire to change manufacturers. You know, when I had the chance at the end of 2014.
Do you ever see BMW coming back into MotoGP? I mean, do you watch what's going on across at these regulations that are coming up in 2027? Do you ever consider that you might end up getting involved with a team in MotoGP, completely against what you and Tash were aiming to do, of course? But
Well,
do you,
yeah, like we just said at the start, yeah, I've no idea. You know, basically, as a motorbike racer, I think when you're in that little bubble of being a racer, you think about the next race, and then it's the next one, and okay, done, next, and you don't think about even a year down the line. You know what I mean? So, um, who knows what the future holds? I just know, I think I really value normality in life, and I think a schedule with 21 races and tests and is so hard to have some kind of normality in your life. That is all your life, and I'm not prepared to make my job everything in life. Do you know what I mean? I give as much as I can to Superbike. The schedule means that you know you get a lot of time at home. You can prepare. You can train well. You go to the races. They're with 12 rounds this season. I think they're trying to expand the calendar a little bit, but that for me is perfect. But to think about double my schedule, um, yeah, just
what
wouldn't
about
make sense.
what about the situation where obviously you've got a background in being able to look at managing teams, managing finances, managing yourself, fitness, and so on. There's a hell of a lot in your head that would be so valuable to youngsters coming through. Would that interest you at all?
Yeah, I do. I often think about that. In fact, I've as silly as it is and off topic, I've thought about doing my coaching badges for football. Um, because a lot of the little academy where my young boy is today, sometimes I've been asked to go in and help out there, and I really really enjoy helping and developing kids. The role in the team in motorsport that I enjoy the most, that I think I would enjoy the most now is, um, I got Fabian Fori to work with me as a rider coach, and I think it's probably the closest thing to actually being on the bike and getting the result in the team, or being a crew chief. I think the crew chief thing I could structure and do everything well, but technically, honestly, I'm not the most clever guy, and my admin skills are terrible. So I think team management would be out. I'd have thousands of emails in my inbox that were unopened or unreplied to. So, um, yeah, I think that would be out. But I don't know. I think I do have a lot of experience that would go to waste. But yeah, I think something will peep its horn at me when at the right time, and the next chapter will be, because I admire guys. I really admire people like yourself, and I tell Neil Hodgson quite fondly all the time that he had such a great racing career, and that was all your world, you know what I mean? But then after that becomes, it's just the next day, and probably your biggest fans back then thought, oh, Keith Hughes, the motorbike rider, or Neil Hodgson, the world superbike rider, whatever. But then today, Neil Hodgson and yourself have been massively known for your commentary. So you've made that your, a massive, massive part of your career. So for me, my career is defined now by motorbike racing, but I have no idea what's next. But I know whatever it is, I'll throw the kitchen sink at it, and try and be good at that as well.
I think work ethic is the thing at the end of the day. Racing does teach you that, and you can handle success and disappointment reasonably well. I think that's one thing that all sports people have to learn to deal with, which is quite tricky. And I think that works out quite well in general business. And after racing motorbikes, I've got to say everything else is easy. It's better than getting a proper job. I can tell you that for nothing. Where I'm sat
Well,
nowadays.
is it the footballers? They always talk about, they've always been beat more than they win. You know what I mean? So that you have to take disappointments, and recover. And bloody motorbike as a rider, if I'm sure you take any top rider that you see right now on top of the podium, and you look into their career and the amount of days they've spent in accident and emergency, or rehabs, or theaters, or on the sidelines, or no, everyone sees that shiny moment, but they don't see the trail of hard work that's gone in from they've been probably 4, 5, 6 years old with their families and the sacrifice. So it's nice to get that moment in the sun, if you like, but it's bloody tough.
But I think if ever I might say that you and Tash would make a fantastic pairing when it came to that as well, because she knows exactly what she's doing as well behind the scenes. The whole family, family Ray, have got quite a lot of ammunition if ever you should want to go into that kind of business, I would suggest. Maybe you already discussed it. I don't know.
No, I think, well, to be honest, I wouldn't need to be sold too much on it, but she would obviously have to be on board. We're very together, and we try and make decisions together. But I really don't feel like she would be into that. You know what I mean? But you never know. I think I'm not sure. I haven't spoke to Foggy. I know after his career, he took quite a lot of time away, um, from sport, fell out of sport, and then enjoyed it again, came back, and he's more in touch with bikes now. But
I
I think
can't
that,
think of two personalities more different than yours and Foggy's.
but I think anytime, I know the ideal situation is to go and recover and enjoy a normal life, and go on a holiday that you can plan, and not one that's planned around bloody two races, or go on my my brother, one of my brothers, Richard's birthday always falls on the last weekend in November. I'm always testing, or I mean every racer's the same, but December is the time for families and Christmases, but it's every racer's off season, and the thought of going on the piss for December with your mates and enjoying that is, it's not reality for a motorbike racer. You get stuck into losing as much weight as you can, putting the off season of your life in to come back in February and be ready. So yeah, just enjoy a bit of normality. But I think after enjoying that, and probably you might probably lose my identity a bit and then want to get back into it. You know, you've no idea. You know, that's a mental thing I'm going to have to cope with when that day comes. But that's if I go back now to the decision, it brings me back to that decision to move to Yamaha. I had like last year, probably about this time or in the previous the months sort of June, July was a lot of conversations about what I was going to do, and I didn't want to continue with Kawasaki. It was sort of done, and I didn't want to retire. And you've got this, shiny blue light, if you like, given an opportunity. And I thought, brilliant. That's something I really need right now in my career. Because I think sometimes it's more important to know what you don't want to do than what you do. And I really didn't want the journey to finish. Because my peer group growing up was, or let's say my career rival, Chaz Davis, if you like. Tom Sykes, guys like Eugene Laverty I remember being at Phillip Island last year thinking, well, them guys aren't here. And I was thinking, I don't want to, I'm not ready to not come to Phillip Island and get that buzz of a start of the year, you know what I mean? So I still get so excited to go racing, to get ready to go racing. My life's full of purpose to go racing. So that's a big factor in taking on this new challenge.
What's going to satisfy you this year in Yamaha in the end?
I do think it's I have to see the glass half full, but at the minute it's really tough because it feels like we can't really catch a break. But I think success would be being on the podium, and real success would be winning a race. But that's quite far away. I can't. We need to walk now before we can run. But yourself, like one day testing on the bike or a good weekend, and the sport turns so fast. The confidence comes back, the chest comes out, and all of a sudden you're ready again. So that will be real success. But I think progress would be just keep learning how to ride this bike, trying to make myself better. Also, communication with different people. I've learned a lot how I worked with my previous team didn't work so much at Yamaha, so we had to change the way of working a little bit. And yeah, step by step we're finding the way. So we're constantly evolving, if you like, also as people, not much as riders. But yeah, I want to be competitive. It's frustrating for me. Really frustrating, but believe me, I'm giving it 100%, and I'll keep doing it. I think when we get a sniff, we can be there, but yeah, it's gotta.
I kind of get a feeling.
I talk about this program is a bit like we can't just build a house today. We've got to put good foundations in, and then like you're talking about MotoGP, and something has to change in Superbike, then God knows what the regulations will be next year, so we have to understand that as well, and to see how competitive we can be in 25.
Talking about building houses, one of your best builders didn't go with you, and I've got to ask the question because obviously there'll be a load of people shouting down at the screen at the moment. Why didn't Parariba go with you?
Well, to be fair, it was something that was talked about in the beginning because it would make sense. He knows me well. And at the 11th hour, it didn't happen. More so from his side and Kawasaki's side. So, but there's also positives and negatives. I mean, Perry was a great crew chief. Andrew Pitt's a good crew chief. We just, I think a lot of people talk about that, and I have to fight Andrew's battle a little bit for him because he's the guy that everyone looks at now because my results haven't been good, but that's a combination. You can't just point fingers. Andrew pretty much steered Locatelli to fight me for third in the world last year. there was times where he's going back to asking about what Toprak was doing in the Yamaha. Well, there was, Aragon last year, Locatelli was the strongest Yamaha. Unfortunately, had a technical in one race and couldn't get away, but all weekend he was the guy. And Andrew had worked with him since he came to World Superbike, so he's got a decent CV himself. But when you're working with somebody new, it just takes time. But Perry didn't know the Yamaha, maybe his way of coming in. He knew me very well, understood how to maybe manage a weekend with me, but didn't understand the bike. And believe me, like I said before, it's got a lot of similarities, but it's completely different. So I think I really believe I'm in good hands, and I've got to trust the process. But it was it was something that was talked about in the beginning, but never really came off.
Jonathan, it's been great talking to you as ever. Thank you for giving us the insights to some of the bits and pieces behind the scenes. It's always interesting to hear what your perception of things are. It's been a tough year, there's no doubt about it. It's always difficult doing these kind of things in a tough year. It's easy when things are flying and everything's going great, and you can big it all up. But you have a huge amount of support. There's no doubt about that, from the UK, from Northern Ireland, of course. I mean, and the fact that your feet are so on the ground, I think that's where that basis comes from. I mean, I think everybody appreciates the way you go about your work.
Yeah. So, no, I really, I appreciate all the support. I really do. And at times, I feel it's really hard, especially trackside, the amount of support I have and traveling support, not just from Northern Irish people, but British people as well. It's amazing to have that support. And sometimes I always feel as a rider, it's hard to give that back. But I've found, with teammates with Tom Sykes was the complete opposite. He would be clowning around outside the garage, signing tens and tens and autographs right before his session, where I'm a little bit more. I've got for example, if you've got that much energy for your race weekend, I have to use that energy firstly on myself, because it takes a lot of my mental energy to get there. And sometimes I feel I sacrifice a bit of that in return for the support I get. But it's really hard to balance that in the race weekend. Sometimes when you're trying to get somewhere and you're getting stopped for a little bit of attention, I find that really, really hard to. Well, I can't stop here because I have to be there, and I'm already late for this appointment. And I just wish I could give that little bit more back to all the support I receive, because it means the world to me.
We appreciate you coming on OMG MotoGP, that's for sure, today. Jonathan, thanks ever so much for joining us, and we wish you the very best for the rest of the year and success on the Yamaha. We're looking for that first win.
Thank you.
Want an unparalleled Grand Prix experience and free signed MotoGP merchandise? MotoGP Premier has you covered. The first 15 people to buy any official ticket package will also receive an official piece of signed team merch. Just use code OMG at motogppremier.motogp.com/OMG at checkout. Promotion ends 31st of October 2024.